The House will come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by Jordan Ashton and Dwan Clate from Everest College in Denver.
Please join us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Kohler, please take a roll.
Thank you, Jordan. Representatives Becker. Buck. Buckner. Conti. Corum. Court. Del Grosso. Dorr. Durand. Everett. Exum. Fields. Fisher. Representative Fisher.
Absent.
Absent. Foote. Garcia. Gardner. Representative Gardner. Giroux. Janal. Representative Janal. Hamner. Holbert. Hollinghorst. Representative Hollinghorst.
Absent.
Representative Fisher is present. Hollinghorst absent. Humphrey. Joshi. Kagan. Representative Kagan.
Absent.
Absent. Tracy Kraftar. Labuda. Landgraf. Representative Landgraf.
Absent.
Lawrence. Lebsock.
Hollinghorst present. Hollinghorst.
Okay. Lee. May. McCann. McLaughlin. McNulty. Melton. Mitch Bush. Moreno. Murray. Navarro. Nordberg. Pabon. Peniston. Representative Kagan is present. Representative Peniston. Pedersen. Primavera. Priola. Representative Priola.
Absent.
Absent. Rankin. Rosenthal. Bryden. Sane. Salazar. Schaefer. Scott. Singer.
Excused.
Excused. Sonnenberg. Stevens. Representative Stevens. Absent. Swam. Zabo. I got you, thank you. Tyler. Vigil. Waller. Williams. Representative Williams. Wilson. Wright. Young. Speaker Farinian. Representative Priola is present. Landgraf absent and Stevens absent. Singer's here. And Landgraf at 65.
Is Singer here?
Yeah.
Hey, Singer. You're supposed to be in the journal. With 65 members present, 0 excused, and 0 absent, a quorum is present. Representative Singer for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of March 25th, Tuesday, 2014 be dispensed with and that it be approved as corrected eloquently by our Chief Clerk.
You've heard the motion, so not so eloquently stated. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The noes have lost and the motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions, Representative Labuda. Members, can we have your attention for announcements and introductions?
Good morning, members. Yesterday, I made an announcement about Colorado Heights University, and then some people asked me, where's Colorado Heights?
Hold on one sec, Representative Labuda. I can't even hear you. Members, can we take the side conversations off the floor? So, thank you. I couldn't even hear them well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I moved here a few decades ago, it was a Loretto Heights University. Some of you may remember that on South Federal Boulevard. Then it became Tequio Loretto Heights, and now it has morphed into Colorado Heights University. And it is a private nonprofit university specializing in international business degrees for foreign students. And we have here on the side, standing up, I think 28 students from Colorado Heights. The countries they come from include Mexico, Syria, Mongolia, Japan, Russia, Tajikistan, China, Kazakhstan, Iran, Vietnam, Morocco, Libya, Turkmenistan, Korea, Paraguay, Ghana, Taiwan, Gabon, Moldova, Cameroon, Iraq, and Ukraine. And some of them are wearing their native country garb. Members, please welcome these students from Colorado Heights. They'll be here today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Janal.
Thank you, members. I just wanted to let you all know that today is Pharmacist Day at the Capitol, and they're going to be on the north wing of the Capitol on the first floor. Just a question to you all. Do you know what your normal blood pressure readings are? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, a few of you, not very many of you. Well, I suggest that you visit the pharmacist on the north wing on the first floor before and after we do the budget today and see what your blood pressure readings are. And
mine was
they'll
normal
also tell
before
you
I got this
cholesterol
job.
numbers and a lot of other questions that you'd like to ask. So please go and visit the pharmacist on the first floor. Thanks.
Representative Vigil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, good morning, members. Today, the San Luis Valley Potato Organization from the San Luis Valley brought up over 300 bags of potatoes. These potatoes are going to be distributed to your offices when we caucus, so you'll find those potatoes in your office. Also, they brought some cookbooks, extra cookbooks. If anybody didn't get one, please let me know and I'll see what I can do to get you one. So enjoy the potatoes, and we're glad that Colorado is producing these things so we can all enjoy them from farm to the Capitol there. So thank you very much.
Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, would you please offer a warm welcome to a representative of Chaparral High School, my son Carson Holbert. He's right over there. So.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and happy Ag Day. What a good day. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a couple of college groups here today. The Collegiate Farm Bureau groups from both CSU and NJC are here. They're sitting right over here. If I can have them stand up and you can welcome them.
Representative Sonnenberg, can you just continue?
Thank you. And then as part of the festivities today, Obviously, you know about the lunch. Representative Fisher has talked about the phenomenal program, and I'm sure he'll talk about that again. So I'll leave that to him. But this evening, Districts 1, 2, and 6 will do their annual steak fry at the Presbyterian Church, just 2 blocks north on Sherman Street, where they go outside, out back. They barbecue those fancy steaks, and you get all the trimmings and fixings tonight. Social time is at 5:30, dinner's at 6. I would love to see you all there and have you meet with some good homegrown farmers and ranchers. Thank you, guys.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Sonnenberg, for mentioning Ag Day today. You know, we have the Farm to Fork culinary cook-off today during the lunch hour, and I urge you to all participate in that. There's going to be some great food and specialty dishes prepared by celebrity chefs who've teamed up with legislators to prepare those recipes. I also want to bring to your attention, on each of your desks, you see a poster, actually 2 posters, and there actually are 2 different posters on your desks. These posters were provided to us by the Colorado Foundation for Agriculture, and they are a way that we can show our support for Colorado agriculture and try to help bridge that gap between our rural agricultural producers and urban constituents. I urge you to display these posters with pride in your offices, either at home or in your other offices. And I really think it's great what the work that the Colorado Foundation for Agriculture is doing in terms of ag literacy in Colorado, and they should be congratulated for that work. Thank you.
Further, Representative Pabon, Mr. Assistant Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask permission to be excused on Thursday and Friday of this week, budget days. My sister is getting married in San Diego, and she has asked me to officiate the wedding. I've talked to the Majority Leader and these guys, and they said it was, I could be, I've informed them, so I'm asking permission, Mr. Speaker.
I'm thinking about it, trying to decide. I mean, I think I might be doing your sister a favor if I say no and she has to find someone else to officiate it. Okay, Representative McNulty for debate on this permission.
Now, it is an official request of the House, and normally the Speaker says without objection, Representative whomever, in this case Pabon. So if there is objection, Mr. Speaker, it actually has to be put to a vote of the House.
Representative Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as is somewhat customary here, I would offer to the Assistant Majority Leader to take up a collection from these guys to allow you to stay out in California through May 8th. I would just amend that motion, and if the Assistant Majority here, we are a very generous lot here.
Representative Pabon will be excused as requested. We will miss you very much. Okay, yeah, I was trying to be nice. Madam Speaker Pro Tem and Representative Everett.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker and colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hello, colleagues. I'd like to introduce an incredible young woman that we have here today. Her name is Ashley Berry, and she was just named Miss Colorado Junior Teen of 2014.
Please welcome her. Colleagues, this young woman is very accomplished. She is nationally recognized for her public speaking against bullying. So it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Further announcements, introductions. Seeing none, we will proceed to our next order of business. Third reading of bills, final passage. Members, please return to your desks. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 131.
Senate Bill 131 by Senator King, also Representative Wright, concerning the removal of certain identifying information from motor vehicle registration card.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 131 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 131 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Del Grosso, Priola, Rankin, Salazar, Swam, and Zabo. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 131 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1187.
House Bill 1187, Representative Swam, Alster, and Todd, concerning consumer protection from excess damages to repair of rental vehicles.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1187 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1187 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Lost my train of thought there. Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1187 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1289.
House Bill 1289 by Representative McNulty, also Senator Johnson, concerning the reinvestment of unused governmental monies held by financial institutions that are in excess of the amount insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and accounts of other financial institutions.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1289 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1289 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Oh, it's a McNulty bill? Close the machine. With 65 aye votes, 0 no votes, 0 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1289 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House proceed out of order to consider House Joint Resolution 1014.
Seeing no objection, the House proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1014.
House Joint Resolution 1014 by Representative Sonnenberg, also Senator Brophy, concerning the designation of March 26, 2014 as Agriculture Day in Colorado.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Joint Resolution 1014 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas Americans enjoy the safest, most abundant, and most affordable food supply in the world, thanks largely to the efficiency and productivity of America's farm and ranch families. And whereas, as the world's population grows from 7 billion to 9 billion by 2045, farmers and ranchers face the challenge of producing more food, feed, fiber, and fuel. And whereas, today, 98% of all U.S. farms are family-owned, and each American farmer feeds more than 156 people, a dramatic increase from the 1960s when each farmer could feed only 25 people. And whereas Americans spend less than 10% of their annual income on food, less than any other developed nation, while American farmers and ranchers receive only 12 cents of every dollar spent on food. And whereas American farmers and ranchers are the most capable and responsible providers for the safety, health, and well-being of their livestock. And whereas the agriculture industry is the second largest industry in Colorado, supporting more than 173,000 jobs in Colorado and contributing $41 billion to the state's economy. And whereas Colorado was responsible for exporting more than $2 billion in food and agricultural products in 2012. And whereas Colorado agriculture contributes to national security not only by providing food and fiber, but also by producing energy. And whereas Colorado recognizes landowners whose livelihood depends upon the property they reside on, operate on, and care for as they work to provide basic necessities to all. And whereas Colorado's agriculture industry requires an adequate, reliable workforce in order to provide food from the field to the table. And whereas Colorado's farms and ranches provide wildlife habitats, open space, and a site for innovative and sustainable farming practices that ensure the protection of state resources. And whereas Colorado's agriculture industry produces a diverse and valuable array of livestock and crops, including cattle, sheep, hogs, goats, bison, elk, eggs, wine grapes, fruit, vegetables, greenhouse and nursery products, honey, and aquaculture, as well as commodities including corn, wheat, and hay. And whereas Colorado's agriculturists employ sound animal husbandry practices, ensuring that livestock remain healthy, productive, and content. And whereas Colorado agriculture provides an estimated $67.5 million annually to support the state's wildlife. And whereas Colorado's farmers and ranchers are innovative entrepreneurs and business leaders who remain resilient in their dedication to the continued prosperity of the state's agriculture. And whereas the protection of private property and the rights of landowners who provide wholesome, safe food to Americans and others worldwide is essential. And whereas farmers and ranchers are critical to Colorado agritourism, welcoming tourists from around the world and showing them all Colorado has to offer. And whereas losing agricultural land and water to other uses will result in overall negative impacts to the state's economy and a loss of food production vital to all Coloradans. And whereas March 25th, 2014 is National Agricultural Day. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, proudly recognize Colorado Agriculture Day on March 26, 2014, in celebration of the many men and women who strengthen the nation's agriculture industry, promote a safe, high-quality, and sustainable food supply, and protect consumers, the environment, and natural resources. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to the Honorable Governor John Hickenlooper, Colorado Commissioner of Agriculture John Salazar, and the members of the Colorado Congressional Delegation.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members, thank you. Please be seated. It's an honor every year to bring this resolution in recognition of Ag Day. You know me, however. Every day is Ag Day to me, and we ought to be appreciative of agriculture throughout the year for not only what they provide to you, but what they provide to the entire state, the economy of this state, as the second largest industry in this state. As Governor Hickenlooper said in his State of the State a couple of years ago, it was agriculture that led the charge out of recession. It was agriculture that drove the economy, and rural Colorado that drove the economy to make sure we didn't end up like California during the downturn. With that, I'll let others talk. I think the resolution, quite frankly, said it all, and it was very well done. I would just urge you to always remember how important agriculture is to the state of Colorado and what they contribute to the economy and, quite frankly, to the value system of our state. I would ask for a yes vote.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I want to express my appreciation for Representative Sonnenberg for running this very important resolution today. Today is really a remarkable day, I think, for the Capitol. We'll see farmers and ranchers from all over the state participating today, and they'll make a huge donation today to the Food Bank of the Rocky Mountains. An incredible generosity exhibited by our agricultural producers today, and that's all going to happen around 11:30 this morning, I believe. The governor's going to be talking, and as well as the Commissioner of Agriculture, John Salazar. I hope you will all take advantage of that opportunity to participate. One of the main reasons I think why we celebrate Ag Day and why it's so important is that this is one of our opportunities during the year to try to bridge those gaps, as I said before, between our growing urban populations and the increasingly scarce number of people that actually produce the food and fiber that we all so greatly depend upon. And one of the things that I feel especially privileged about is to represent Colorado State University, our College of Agricultural Sciences up in Fort Collins, which is in my district, and all the great people that work up there with the Extension Service and the Ag Experiment Station, the Colorado Water Institute. But just recently, CSU hired a new faculty member, Michael Martin, whose sole purpose for being at CSU is ag literacy and developing programs around ag literacy. And I think that's in recognition of the growing need to educate citizens about the importance of our food supply, how that enriches our lives and improves the quality of our lives every day. And it's all too apparent that we are losing that connection as urban residents, and we need to be reminded of that. And so CSU has stepped up to hire Mike Martin, Dr. Mike Martin, to run these ag literacy programs, and he will be working closely with the Colorado Foundation for Agriculture that has their ag in the classroom programs and do so much good work for reaching out to our urban citizens to educate people about agriculture and its importance. So thank you again, Representative Sonnenberg, for bringing this resolution. I encourage everyone to vote yes on this amendment or resolution. Thank you.
Representative Waller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a producer member of the Colorado Farm Bureau, I feel obligated to come down and talk about Ag Day, that's for sure. You know, I think the Colorado Farm Bureau at some point is going to regret the fact that they allowed me to be a producer member because I grow Olathe sweet corn in my garden. But to date, they haven't revoked my membership, so I'm going to speak to you as a producer member of the Colorado Farm Bureau. No, seriously, members, I mean, think about the importance of agriculture to our society. We do Military Appreciation Day here, and we spend a lot of time honoring the military. You know what? The ag community is just as important to our society as the military is. The ag community is just important to our safety and well-being as the military is. And I think that we're constantly out there thanking military veterans. I know many people thank me for my service in the military when I'm out and about. I think we should also thank farmers. I mean, think about this. Farmers produce the food we eat. Without farmers, we would starve, without a doubt. And I think that as technology has grown and as more people move to the urban centers in the state of Colorado and across America, we forget where our food comes from. We think when we go to the grocery store and pick that fresh corn out or pick up those tomatoes or even go to the meat freezer and pick out meat, our food and our produce just simply comes from the grocery store. All of that starts in the ag community. Every single thing we go buy a loaf of bread. That started off as wheat somewhere in America. When we go buy beef, that started off as somebody's livestock in America. And we have, I think that we have grown so complacent knowing that when we show up at the grocery store, our food's going to be there. We have forgotten what it takes to get the food from the farmer to the grocery store, and we've forgotten the sacrifice that farmers put in. I'll tell you, I was over in Montrose, Colorado earlier this year, and I was at an ag conference when I was over there, and I was listening to this gal speak. She's a wheat farmer from Calhan, Colorado, and she was talking about just how difficult it is to be a farmer in today's world. And think about this, members. It's incredibly, the farming community especially is left up to acts of nature and left up to Mother Nature. You know, whether they get enough rain to have their crop grow to full maturity is left up to Mother Nature. So our farmers put a tremendous amount on the line every single year to put the food in Colorado grocery stores. You know, our farmers make bets every year that when they plant that crop is going to be able to grow to maturity, and they're going to be able to get that crop to the grocery store. That is a tremendous undertaking and a tremendous sacrifice. that Colorado citizens make, that those Colorado farmers make. So here's my plea to you. I know when you go out of this building and you see a veteran, you thank them. Today, when you walk out of this building and you meet a farmer, thank them as well for all they do for not only Colorado, but for the United States of America.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Sonnenberg, thank you so much for all your work for agriculture and especially today for this wonderful resolution. As you know, I come from 2 ag counties, in particular Routt County and Eagle County, and I know firsthand because I am a nominal member of the Routt County Cattlewomen. I'm not a producer, of course, how important ag is, not just to our state, not just in terms of the numbers, its economic importance is our second most important industry, but also in the number of other ways that this resolution speaks to that I just want to remind you of because they certainly are important in my district. Water conservation. Our ranchers, our family ranchers and farmers know full well how critical water is, understand our prior appropriation system, and they certainly work to conserve water and have a very positive voice in our water discussions, not the least of which, of course, are this year and next year with regard to the water plan. Ranchers and farmers in Routt County and throughout the state know the importance of wildlife habitat on their ranches and farms and work hard every day to conserve that kind of wildlife habitat. Many ranchers in Routt County and Eagle County have engaged in putting private conservation easements on their property to preserve not only working ag lands, but also wildlife habitat. But to me, one of the most important things that Representative Sonnenberg spoke to are the work ethic and the values of our agricultural families. In Routt County, not only are our ag families out there in the middle of March when it's blizzarding during calving season, if you ever thought about pulling a calf out when the wind is howling and when it's snowing to beat the band, think about that. It's not easy work. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. And still, those family ranchers have time to very disproportionately volunteer for the critical community boards and commissions in our counties, school boards, planning commissions. All manner of nonprofit organizations benefit so greatly from our ag families who bring those hardworking values to those commissions, to those boards, and who really do think about the whole community and, of course, contribute to it all the time. So thanks to all our agricultural producers, our ranchers, our farmers. Thank you all.
Representative Corum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first, I want to apologize to you for bringing Representative Waller Olathe sweet corn seed. I want to apologize to the Farm Bureau, but yes, we're glad that we have supporters like Representative Waller for the ag community. Now, you know, you've talked about agriculture being the #2 industry. The most important thing to you in Colorado, they say agriculture is second. Well, I beg to differ with you on that. Now, I'm going to give you all a little test I want you to try this afternoon. I want you to drink a quart of milk and a quart of oil and see which is the most important to you. You know, it's an honor to Representative Sonnenberg that he brought this up, and I'm very grateful for all the ag community, especially grateful to Representative Sonnenberg's sons who stay home so he can be down here to harass us. But, you know, in rural Colorado, agriculture truly, in my district, is #1. You know, and we have a very simple philosophy in the 58th district. If we don't grow it, you don't need it. So come to the 58th district, and once again, I apologize for Olathe sweet corn, which is developed and bred in Olathe, Colorado, and is the top-selling corn in the nation. Thank you.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Sonnenberg, for your years of leadership and for the ag community. And as a representative of lots of folks in the ag community and a member of the ag committee, I strongly rise in support of the resolution. I did want to take a minute to call your attention to, there's a flyer on your desk which talks about a new evolving partnership between the agriculture community and the Colorado Tourism Office and the Department of Agriculture. And this is called agritourism. And agritourism can be a lot of things. It can be an experience of riding a horse or shearing a sheep. It can also be a food or wine experience. And this is a rapidly growing program. The reason that I want to call your attention to it is this is not just about attracting out-of-state people to Colorado, which is really the mission of the tourism office. This is an opportunity for you to take your kids, I'll use city slickers, load your kids up and go out and learn about the agriculture community in our state, because oftentimes we listen to Representative Sonnenberg talk about and others talk about the ag community, but actually experiencing and learning what these folks do out on the farm and how they work with their animals and grow crops is an experience that we all can now share through this rapidly growing program, which is also great financial boost. And the agriculture community is embracing this program, and it's becoming very successful. Thank you.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. I rise in support of this resolution, and as a representative of the suburban communities, I want to take this moment to say thank you. And thank you for helping us take this moment to recognize that the breakfast that I ate this morning came from the hardworking hands of the farmers and ranchers in our community. Thank you, Representative Sonnenberg.
Representative Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, I rise in support of this resolution. You know, the farmers and ranchers of our state do have a laser-like focus on providing us with wonderful food and fibers and all the other wonderful things they provide us. But, you know, in some cases, in my case at least, they do too good a job, because my problem down here usually is eating too much of it rather than too little of it. So I don't know about you guys. Now, I do have a story, though, that I want to relate quickly. Last Sunday, I was in church, and I was in a pretty good Sunday school class, pretty good size, and I'd say 50, 60, 70 people, and a very good class on the 7 great I am sayings of Jesus. And one of them was, "I'm the good shepherd." And the teacher said, you know, we've totally lost contact with shepherds in our society. How many of you people in this class know a shepherd? I was the only person that was able to raise his hand because of our former representative here today, J. Paul Brown, who's joined us today. So I'd like to recognize him, one of the good shepherds in our state. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lebsack.
Mr. Speaker, members, I stand in strong support of House Joint Resolution 1014. I'm going to tell you a little story also. In 1906, my great-grandfather, who is a Volgadeutsch, some folks call them Germans from Russia, came to this country, and he started working on farms all the way from Welby in Adams County all the way up to Sterling. Thinning beets, working on a number of different farms for years. And this was in 1906. In 1930, ladies and gentlemen, my father's side of the family, who, again, we're Volgadeutsch, were considered the Volgadeutsch and Germans from Russia were the largest minority group in 1930 in Colorado. We left the steppes of Russia because of turbulent times in the early 1900s there, and came to Colorado and North Dakota and South Dakota and Wyoming and Nebraska, and became some of the best farmers and ranchers in the United States. My grandfather purchased the home place about 10 miles north of Marino in between Morgan and Sterling in the 1950s. And my uncle Bud still runs the home place today, and he's in his 80s now. I think he's 80 years old. And while I was running for election in 2012, I was walking, and my dad calls me, and he's in his 70s, and they're both on the roof of the house of the home place. 80 years old and 70-some years old, putting on a new roof. And I was like, for goodness sake, guys, can't you wait until I'm done here and I'll head out there to northeastern Colorado and help you put on that roof? Or can't you hire some help from Sterling to help you? And that's not how they grew up. They do it themselves. And so there was my 80-year-old uncle and my 70-some-year-old father up there on the roof of the old home place putting on a new roof in the summer of 2012. And that's just who they are as people. Do it yourself. And so I stand in strong support of House Joint Resolution 1014. That's where I came from. Even though I was born in Sterling, I was the first generation off the farm, but I'm happy to stand with agriculture, not only today, but happy that this legislature has consistently passed legislation and passed bills that are good for our folks who live in the rural area and the agricultural parts of the state.
Representative Dorr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, of course, I too rise in support of HJR 141014. And we'll hear, and we'll get a chance here in a little while today to eat some of the great food that Colorado farmers and ranchers produce, and we do it every day. But today, for me, it's more about the people and remembering the people that labor and every day get up and work, regardless of the weather conditions, to provide that food for us. And, of course, my district is very, very rural. And every time I'm in it, I'm reminded of the passage which talks about the salt of the earth. And as I walk down from my desk here today and past some of our Farm Bureau members, I was reminded of the salt of the earth, because that's who the people are who work in the rural parts of our state. Truly salt of the earth, people who are dependable, someone you can count on in thick and thin, and someone who doesn't want the credit to give them for what they do. And that's what salt is. If salt is overwhelming, the food doesn't taste that good. But when it's the right flavor, it's a perfect complement. And our farmers and ranchers are truly salt of the earth. They don't ask for favor. They don't ask for recognition, but they deserve every bit of recognition. And to just give them one day an Ag Day, while appropriate, is hardly enough. And I think we should task ourselves to give them recognition every day and make it an Ag year, if you will, for Colorado's farmers and ranchers and what they do for us. So I ask for support in this resolution. Thank you.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I absolutely stand in support of this Mr. Speaker. What was I thinking? I absolutely stand in support of Resolution 1014 and thankful for Sonnenberg and Representative Sonnenberg and Senator Brophy for bringing this. I'm fortunate to represent Larimer County and Weld County. And I look back at my growing up experience, and I feel very blessed that I was able to be with my father in the commercial cattle feeding operation and getting those ag roots that are buried deep in my soul and my gut and my spirit. And I just want to encourage more people to try to raise your kids in those agricultural roots. It's very rewarding. It is, I think, builds a lot of character in kids. And but Larimer County, they have over 1,757 farms and feed on over 489,000 acres, with an average size of a farm of 279 acres. And they hire over 2,200 employees with a $19.4 million payroll. And as I stand before you, I just am honored that CSU is in the home of Larimer County and being a part of the Windsor, which is in Weld County. I will continue to do and encourage all of you to protect agriculture and protect the people and absolutely protect the culture of the people of agriculture. Thank you.
Representative Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, when we think of agriculture, we think of rural areas, don't we? But I'd like to express my appreciation and gratitude from the suburban areas and from the cities for all of the areas of our state that do produce the food, the fiber, the energy. And my district, Wheat Ridge, did you hear the word wheat? Wheat Ridge, Golden, Edgewater, we were settled by immigrant farmers 150 years ago. I believe my high school in Wheat Ridge has the distinction of having the mascot as the farmers. Is there anybody else that has the high school mascot as the farmers? So we're very proud of that. When I walk around the district in suburbia, I see local greenhouses growing fruits and vegetables, community gardens, schools, school gardens everywhere around the district, residential gardens. People around our suburbs and even in our cities are now growing their own fruits and vegetables. And even in my area, there are acreages and there are sheep being grown and goats being raised. So I really want to thank the ag community and tell you how much we from the cities and the suburbs appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Sonnenberg, thank you. There's certain days that we celebrate down here that are important. This one is actually, I've heard a lot of people talk about their roots. My father's family immigrated from Poland. It was Eastern Europe at that point, kind of went back and forth on the borders. But it's Poland, and they immigrated to Chicago, and then my great-grandmother and my grandmother and her brothers homesteaded in Wyoming. And they homesteaded in an area close to Lance Creek. I'm sure you all know where that is. It's close to Lusk. And they had a sheep ranch. And even though they had a sheep ranch, my father's mother was a member of the, well, you call it cattle women's now, and in the old days we called it cowbells. And so my grandmother was a cowbell. And my mother's father grew up, actually his first 12 years in Colorado Springs, and ended up moving up to Wyoming and was a ranch hand, and then bought a ranch near Douglas from a retired cavalry officer from the Civil War. So, you know, the world touches back so quickly. Anyway, and my grandmother was a cowbell. In fact, both of my grandmothers were presidents of the cowbells. And my parents live on a small ranch near Douglas now, and close to where Representative Hollinghurst, we have that shared tie in Douglas. But my mother and father live on a small ranch, and they're older and shouldn't be ranching, but they still are. My father does this thing, well, he'll go out and buy used cattle, and he raises them for the year and then sells them off to keep his ag exemption. And that's legal in Wyoming, just so you know. So there's a strong tradition of ranching in my family. So both of my grandmothers were president of cowbells, and my mother was president of cowbells. And I regret the fact that I never had the opportunity to be president of cowbells, but I do consider myself a dingaling.
Representative Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to follow that. I, too, rise in strong support of HJR 141014. And I want to thank you, Representative Sonnenberg, for bringing this resolution forward. As a proud graduate of Colorado State University College of Veterinary Medicine, I studied agriculture throughout all of my advanced degrees and my undergraduate degrees, from crops for animal feed to the health of sheep, of cows, and of horses for my doctorate degree. And I understand how important agriculture is for all of us, whether it's rural, which is really, really important, as well as the urban aspects that have been discussed. So I thank you again, and I rise in strong support for this resolution. Thanks.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to bring Representative Swam's laser-like focus back to this Ag Day and point out a few things. When Representative Giroux talked about they just went out and bought a few head of cattle, do you understand what kind of an investment that is? When you see those calves like this, that's a $1,000 bill walking around out there. $1,000. These ag people buy those by the pot load and put them out on wheat pasture. You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars involved with that. And, you know, I get the feeling as I'm standing up here that we're saying nice things about ag today, but the one thing missing in your resolution, Representative Sonnenberg, is endangered species. Because that's what ag people really are, an endangered species. Would all those who grew up on a farm please stand in this chamber? All those who grew up on a farm, please join me and stand up in this chamber. Now, of all those that remain standing, I'd like the ones that remain standing that have actually operated a farm. Look around, folks. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Thank you. Thank you. Representative Sonnenberg in his resolution said, yes, sir. Oh, you were on a farm. Okay. 12 cents out of every dollar. That's what the ag community gets out of those dollars. So when you go buy a steak for $10 or $12 at the grocery store, do the math on what actually goes to the producer. When you buy a loaf of bread, do the math. See what actually goes to the producer. So another part of that, see that toy tractor over there? Most of us look at that as a toy. How many gallons of diesel fuel run through that in a day, Representative Sonnenberg? 150 gallons. Multiply that times 3.45 per day. Per day. There won't be an electric tractor, folks. There won't be an electric tractor. So we've got to be careful about what we do in this chamber for agriculture. There's an adage which is true, and that's why there's only so many people left standing. You farm until the money runs out. I'm living proof of that. I operated that family farm in Kansas until the money ran out. The biggest gamblers in Colorado are not in Blackhawk. They're right over there. They put literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into the ground and wait for Mother Nature to decide whether or not it's going to pay off. So again, as oftentimes I get up here on a resolution, folks, I ask, what are we going to do about it? It's fun to listen to the stories, but what are we going to do about these producers that are an endangered species? Today we'll eat the food. This evening we'll eat the steak. Tomorrow we'll forget about the ag producers. Don't forget about them. If you're like me, you like to eat. Protect our rural farmers. They are an endangered species. Thank you, Representative Sonnenberg, for bringing this resolution.
Representative Sane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in strong support of this resolution. A couple words about Weld County. Weld County has over 2.5 million acres, of which 75% is devoted to agriculture. Weld County is one of the top 10 agricultural producing counties in the nation. So in contrast to the 58th district, we are not exclusive if we grow it because everyone needs it. Weld County is one of the leading producers of beef cattle, grain, sugar beets, and the state's leading dairy producer. There are over 3,000 farms in Weld County that create over $1 billion annually for the Colorado economy. Folks, you hear often about an 80-20 rule, or what's called a Pareto principle. And in Colorado, that plays out in many ways, but one of those ways is in water. 80% of the water in Colorado is used by agriculture, and there's a reason for that, because agriculture sustains the other 20%. To be a farmer and rancher, as Representative Wilson said, is to be a professional gambler. You gamble on weather, water, commodity pricing, and on your own endurance when things go wrong. And this is all in order to strive to produce food that is safe, that is affordable, and one of the highest, and the highest quality that they can possibly produce. Farmers, I also want to say this too, folks, farmers are not given enough credit for their respect for the environment. I'd like to quote a farmer, third-generation farmer in my district, Mark Arnish. He said, "Knock the dirt off of any farmer and rancher, and you will find the greenest individual on the face of the planet. We take better care of the land and the livestock than we do ourselves, and it's this type of sacrifice that is never seen by the average consumer." So, folks, I again urge an aye vote on this resolution, and I thank Representative Sonnenberg and Senator Brophy for bringing it.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise in support of this resolution. Thank you, Representative Sonnenberg, for doing this every year. And I guess the main reason why House District 61 is the most scenic in the state is because of the miles and miles and acres of ag land that we have in House District 61. Just this weekend, I had the opportunity to drive from my home in Dillon to Hotchkiss and then to Gunnison and home through Leadville. And was reminded again, it's the ag land that causes this part of Colorado to be so beautiful, to have so many open spaces. And during the spring, it's so exciting to see the calves on the ranches. That's one of my very favorite things about spring. And just to reassure Representative Wilson that we won't just celebrate today and thank Representative Vigil for the Colorado potatoes, which I also love about this day, but that we're going to be getting into one of the favorite parts of summer in the mountains, and that is our farmers markets. There has been such a proliferation of farmers markets. They're the heart now of every community that I can think of in the mountain area of Colorado. And I just love that part of this going into the summer season, being able to shop at farmers markets and have that farm-to-table experience. I also want to give a huge shout out to our grape growers. I think all of you know that we have great wineries in western Colorado and particularly in Delta County. We won't get into the competition between Delta and Mesa, but just really wanted to rise in support of this resolution. Also, many of you have been working with me on issues related to childhood obesity prevention. It's through making sure that our kids get this healthy food that is being grown right here in Colorado that we can work together to address this major issue facing us. So thanks again for the resolution, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Representative McNulty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Waller, I've started a petition to have your Farm Bureau card revoked, so we're going to get that going. Colleagues, I appreciate all of the support that's been shared here today. And I want to come back to what Representative Wilson said. What are we going to do about it? We've got Representative Vigil back there, Representative Sonnenberg up here. 2 out of 65 of us that actually operate a farm. Are we making the lives of farmers easier? Making the lives of ranching families easier through our work here? I don't know that we are. Legislation to ban traditional farm animal husbandry practices, a tax on bountiful crops that have been enhanced by science, allow us to not only feed them to feed us, but to feed the world. Increasing energy prices on farmers and ranchers. When Senator Brophy and Representative Sonnenberg come down and tell us that this bill or that bill will increase the cost on farmers and ranchers, and it passes. What are we doing to help ensure that farming and ranching remains viable in our state? Do we just come down here one day a year and say nice things about agriculture because it makes us feel good, because it seems to be the right thing to do at the time, or are we going to carry that practice out? Carry that practice through the bills that we carry and the votes that we cast? Agriculture is critical to our state, colleagues. Agriculture is important to our lives, and I hope that as we probably pass this unanimously on a voice vote here, and all of us are going to co-sponsor it on Representative Sonnenberg's motion, that our support for agriculture carries through in the bills that we carry, the votes that we cast, and the deeds that we do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to kind of put a few statistics out there for folks to understand. And this, if you had a chance to read through your Colorado economic forecast that was dated March 18th, the one we just got, and they talk about ag production in the state of Colorado. But it says challenging weather conditions have made agriculture production in Colorado volatile over the past few years. According to the United States Department of Ag, the 2013 Colorado corn crop was 130 million bushels, 3% below 2012 production. Wheat production in Colorado was 45 million bushels, a decrease of 40% compared to the year before. Colorado potato growers produced 20.3 million hundredweight of potatoes, a 9% decline from the previous year. The USDA estimates that the value of field crops produced in Colorado was $2.1 billion. It sounds pretty high, but when you look at that as a 24.6% decline from the previous year. Livestock and dairy production are also major components of the Colorado agriculture sector. Cattle on feed averaged 942,000 head, but that is a decline of 8.7% from the previous year. So piggybacking on what Representative Minolti talked about, we can all feel good about Ag Day and we can all feel good about supporting it and everything else, but those are the realities that these folks that live in the ag community have to be faced with. And when they're looking at these severe decrease in numbers out there, we also have to be very mindful that why are these guys standing up and fighting for every little bit of rural Colorado, and there's a reason why. When they're facing this other stuff, when it has weather and all the other things that they have to deal with, we don't need to add to further burden on what they have to do. So I just thought that I would point out some of those numbers when everybody thinks that the ag community, everything's rosy for those guys. It's not. This isn't something that's made up. This is something that's out there that's real. So just make sure that we're mindful of those numbers when we're looking at further legislation. Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in strong support of this resolution. I did not have the benefit of being connected in agriculture with any way. I was born on an Air Force base. I spent my entire youth on an Air Force base. I graduated from high school living on an Air Force base. However, my wife, Barbara McLaughlin, who is up in the gallery today, is a fifth-generation Coloradoan. Her ancestors first started out in Sterling, and as Representative Sonnenberg will acknowledge, her great-grandmother was first teacher in Sterling, and her great-grandfather was the first doctor in Sterling. More importantly, her other side of her family, my wife graduated from CSU, her sister graduated from CSU. Her grandfather, on her father's side, was professor of sugar science at Colorado A&M. So her family has contributed to agriculture. It's a challenge for representatives to truly speak and represent all of rural Colorado, and I'm honored to do it. And I wanted to say, Representative Sonnenberg, you are a great spokesman for agriculture, and we truly appreciate your participation in the legislature. We're going to miss your voice. Thank you.
I think he might be moving over to some other lower chamber. Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me say thank you to all of you who have had such kind words. And I'm going to tell you just a brief little story. A couple weeks ago, we had a snowstorm here in Denver with a lot of wind, and I had a meeting out in Stratton that day. And I had a member, a person here at the Capitol say, well, it's blizzarding outside. Why would you drive all the way to Stratton? And I said, well, that's not a blizzard. And he said, well, what do you call it? I said, I call that calving season. And yes, it is calving season. It's calving season now, and my boys are indeed calving as we speak. And I'll finish with this little story. Talked with my son this morning on how yesterday went as the calves hit the ground. And as you may or may not know, When a calf hits the ground, us ranchers kind of think we're like doctors and we need to look over the calf, tag it, make sure everything's okay, make sure the nose is clean, make sure there's nothing in the mouth so it can breathe, and do everything it can. And of course, mother cows have great mother instincts. And my son told me this morning, he says, "Dad, I have never seen a cow jump over a four-wheeler like I did yesterday to get me." And most of you, if a cow jumped off of over a four-wheeler, lowered his head, run over you to protect its calf, you'd be terrified. He got up, made sure the calf was all right, climbed on the four-wheeler and drove off. And that's what we do. And yeah, in that blizzard then, he takes that calf away from the mother and he brings it in the house and puts it in the bathtub so it can warm up and save the life of a calf from freezing to death. Then take it back out to mom. With that said, members, thank you. With your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, I would ask the late Paul Harvey to give the final word today.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, "I need a caretaker." So God made a farmer. God said, "I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board." So God made a farmer. "I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, have to wait lunch until his wife's done feeding visiting ladies, then tell the ladies to be sure and come back real soon and mean it." So God made a farmer. God said, "I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then painin' from tractor back put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay in ahead of the rain clouds and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, "I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners. Somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does." So God made a farmer.
Seeing no further discussion, is there any objection to taking a voice vote? Seeing none, we'll proceed in that manner. All those in favor of HJR 1014 say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. HJR 1014 is adopted. Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the morning roll call be made as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the morning roll call be made the co-sponsors of HJR 1014. Thank you, Representative Sonnenberg. Thank you, members. And let us all welcome our guests to the chamber. Madam Caucus Chairs. Representative Court.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call for the Democrats to caucus on the budget in room 112 in 5 minutes.
Representative Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And likewise, I call for the Republican caucus to, in 10 minutes, to meet and convene in room 107.
Representative Court, not to be outdone.
Let's get it done. We're faster.
The House will stand in recess so the parties can caucus on the budget.